You may lose your faith in us, but never in yourselves. From here, the fight will be your own.
Welcome to the Film Fix. I'm Jonathan W. Hickman, and I'm always joined by Jeff Marker. And this week we saw two films, Transformers: Dark of the Moon and Larry Crowne. So I think we're going to get things started by talking about the widest release, the 3D offering, the Spielberg-produced. Oh God, this is bad for him.
Yeah.
And the Michael Bay directed, the Foxless Transformers: Dark of the Moon. So in an effort to make amends for the second film, Revenge of the Fallen, that frankly was an abomination for fans of the Transformers and for just fans of action movies in general, Michael Bay unleashes on us this weekend Transformers: Dark of the Moon. It is nothing less than over the top, intentionally so, and the story, what story there is, takes place or starts in the past when Cybertron, the battle between the Decepticons and the Autobots, reaches its crescendo. A ship called the Ark that holds the secret or the solution for the Autobots gets lost, and it crash lands into our moon. Flash forward or flash back, I'm not quite sure, to 1969. When the U.S. has done their moonshot and they hit the moon, and Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong step out onto the moon's surface, there is a moment where everything is in black and they find the Ark and they explore the Transformers ship. The movie opens with a really interesting and very well done montage where it convincingly will change history in revisionist fashion. If you're under the age of 12, please read your history books, because Buzz Aldrin is not the guy in this movie, even though he plays himself. At any rate, flash forward to now, and Sam Witwicky, played by Shia LaBeouf, has saved the world not once, but twice. And he's living in Washington, D.C. in a spacious apartment, and he has finished college. He's received a medal from President Obama himself, and for some very strange reason, maybe it's the economy, he cannot find a job. And really, he can't find a job probably because he's Sam Witwicky, and he's an arrogant, fast-talking guy who doesn't want to start in the mailroom. After all, after saving the world, the mailroom is a little low rent. He also has one unbelievable girlfriend. She's played by this new actress who was once a Victoria's Secret model and is not nearly as curvaceous as Megan Fox. But she has a great job, and she's employed by Mick Dreamy himself, and she drives a $200,000 automobile. It is a crazy setup for a movie that keeps getting crazier and crazier. But the movie involves a lot of things blowing up, a story that is positively incoherent, and some of the best 3D special effects that I've seen. And so you might get your money's worth on that level, but you're not going to get a narrative that you can hang on to, and this has to be the very end of the Transformers franchise.
I wish there would have been a camera pointing back at me behind the camera where you talk about it, because I was just dying. It's an abomination. Read your history.
Oh, it is.
You know?
It is. And, I very rarely do this, but I stepped out of the theater and I immediately sent an email to Scott Mance of Access Hollywood, and he's a good friend of mine. And I said, Scott, am I crazy? Or is Transformers Dark of the Moon actually worse than the second film?
Yeah.
I didn't think it could be possible. And I'll let his opinion come out when it comes out, but I just had to get some affirmation that I wasn't going completely crazy. This movie is so over the top. I mean, you get everything. Transformers fans get a lot of what they want. I mean, they get all these different varieties of robots that are continuously changing and transforming. You get a lot of shots of this girl's backside. In fact, there is one of the establishing shots of the apartment involves a low-angle shot of this girl's backside. And I just thought, oh my God, are we going to see another, transformer crawling a pyramid with two brass things hanging from it, which I thought was totally inappropriate for the target audience. But this one's not quite that bad. We don't have Steve Buscemi playing an Autobot or a Decepticon that's attacking the leg of Megan Fox in this, but it comes darn close.
Yeah. Well, in full disclosure, I couldn't make this screening, and I was so happy I couldn't make it. I'm so glad.
Shame on you.
Because I thought the second one was one of the, if not the worst movie that year. And I think, I'm standing there watching Jonathan talk about it and thinking, why do we get so upset about movies like this? It's because they have every advantage at their disposal, and this is the best that they can come up with. And somebody with like Michael Bay, who, he believe me, he knows how to make a movie. He just refuses to make a good one.
Make
and
no
they just
make
push
no mistake.
this kind of thing.
There's a lot of art in this movie, a lot of it, and it will probably receive some kind of Academy Award notice for all of the different things. The sound mix is very good. Can you believe I'm talking about the sound mix? But it didn't overwhelm me like Thor or Green Lantern did. Yeah.
Speaking of the sound mix, there's something circulating the internet, which we're going to post. You'll be able to find it on our site. Michael Bay apparently took a page from Terrence Malick and wrote a letter to the projectionists around the country. Malick sent out a letter, and it was very complimentary, but it was probably a little bit condescending, even though he had the good intentions, making sure that the Tree of Life was projected properly. Well, and then Michael Bay turns around and does the same thing. He says, we're all in this together to sell people on 3D again and that sort of thing. Well, somebody from the Projectionist Guild of America wrote a brilliant response to it, which pretty much sums up the arrogance that is Michael Bay, and he sort of complimented him for the sound mix of all things in your movie. You get the sound mix right. So
is that what he said?
Yeah,
really?
It's a great dig. It's definitely worth a look.
Oh my gosh! And what's amazing about it is that only someone with an amazing ego like Terrence Malick, which I've never met him, but I can't imagine he makes a movie his way, or Michael Bay can produce something so incredibly bad like Transformers. It is a celebration of excess. And I remember a few years ago, I was completely taken with the King Kong remake that Peter Jackson made. And I remember people coming out of the theater, other film critics, complaining that there were too many special effects. And I said, wait a minute, you're complaining about too much of a good thing. Because I felt like the narrative on King Kong, of course a classic narrative now by today's standards, I thought that it held up and it sort of matched because it was its own special effect. I mean, it's interesting that Megan Fox is not in this movie, and Megan Fox was, in a sense, one of the special effects that made the first two movies bearable. Well, here you have a much less curvaceous, much taller woman stepping into a new role of girlfriend, and I don't know. I think Megan Fox might have been spared by not having to be in this movie.
Oddly enough, this might have been a good career move for her.
Yeah, really.
Which you can't say very many times when someone gets dropped from a couple $100 million franchise.
Well,
but good for her.
Well, and now it speaks to the fungibility of actresses. I mean, I know I talk about this a lot. Years ago, I interviewed Joanna Cassidy, who of course was in Blade Runner and a number of other films, and I asked her, now that you're getting a little older and you're not getting the roles, what are you going to do? And she started talking about Ida Lupino, and she started talking about directing and writing and that kind of thing, which I guess if you're a woman in Hollywood, you better be smart as you get older. Because, this firing of Megan Fox demonstrates very clearly how both audiences and Hollywood undervalues actresses. And it's really sad because, I'm not saying Megan Fox is Diane Lane or something, but the reality is that she was slighted for something that allegedly was political correctness, and it may have been completely appropriate. But in a movie where they pervert history, Transformers Dark of the Fallen.
You're really stuck on that.
I'm stuck on the perversion of history. I mean, Buzz Aldrin might not be the most lovable of the bunch of 1969 moon landing folks, but the reality is that this is not the legacy that him talking to Optimus Prime and saying how honored he is in one scene to talk to Optimus Prime is not something that I think he wants to be remembered.
Yeah. Fungibility means easily disposed of or replaced. So let's move on to Larry Crowne.
Larry Crowne.
A character who is also undervalued in his story.
A little counter programming this weekend.